All right. Hey, everybody. It's Andrew, and I'm back with Riley for episode two.
Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are having a good day. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about a little bit more exciting this time. First base, definitely not the catcher position. There's a lot to talk about here.
There's a lot of names, a lot of good names on there. You don't have to worry about getting the first or second guy. I think there's a lot of upside to be had here at first base. I like it. It's deep. It's fun.
First base for the last couple of years, at least in my circles, have talked about, how it kind of got a little bit shallower than it used to be, but now there's just like so much depth at first base. Not so much at the top end, but towards the middle.
Yeah, there's a huge bell curve, and the bell curve is much more in the middle of people that I find acceptable. It's way different than catcher or a few other spots where it's like, oh, you don't have those 1-2 guys. It doesn't matter who you get. I think there's a lot to talk about here and a lot of guys to be excited about.
Yeah, so when I was looking over first base for the anticipation of this episode, the one thing that struck me was for first base, there's so much depth, but when I look through the names, I'm not particularly excited to draft anyone, and that's not because no one's good, but because I feel like you could describe half the guys with they're going to hit 250, 30 home runs, get some walks. I feel like that's like more than half of the first basemen's on this list.
That's a good point. Yeah, but I think that's exciting. I think that's exciting because I think that's where you find the value at some point, right? I think that's when you're drafting, you're looking for, you know what, this guy is, the right time and the right place for me to grab him, and I think that makes it a little bit more exciting when you're drafting instead of just kind of being left with somebody. But you're right. I mean, the best guys we're looking at are definitely that 250 guy who might hit 30 home runs for you, right? That's what that middle bell graph really looks like.
So we'll just dive right in. And the first guy is the obvious best first baseman in the game. Freddie Freeman had another great year in 2020. I mean, I don't have a lot to say about him other than that he's very clearly the top of the top in first base.
He's the top of the top, and he's a guy that I would go for. I don't know about you, but I'd be happy to get
Oh,
Freddie Freeman.
I would be over the moon to get Freeman as my first base. Kind of lock it up. I mean, he he gives you the power, and he's there's a lot of the guys that won't give you the average, but he'll give you the average along with I mean, he had a 462 OBP last year.
He's gonna take his walks. He's gonna make you pitch to him. He's like, "Yeah, you want me to get on base? I got guys behind me who are gonna hit me in." He's gonna score runs. He's gonna score RBIs. He's gonna get his hits. There's not a lot of guys that I'm like, "Oh, that's the top tier guy. I need to have him." I might need to have Freddie Freeman. I'm definitely looking at him.
Absolutely, especially if it's a 12 team draft, you're kind of on that turn pick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If he gets to that turn pick and I that's like the shining goose right there. I'm gonna snatch him right out of the air.
Absolutely, and then after that, it's there's not he's a average ADP right now is 13.5. The next guy, the AL MVP, Jose Abreu. Now, before 2020, I always kind of felt like Jose Abreu was a little bit of a value because of his super high floor. He was always so consistent and underdrafted. But that value's kind of disappeared after his MVP type season in 2020.
Yeah, yeah. He kind of. I mean, I feel like exactly like you said, he was always on everybody's radar, but he was always that guy that you were hoping for a deal. You were hoping he would fall pretty far, and at a certain point, you felt like your hands were tied. You had to take him. Here, I think people are going to be reaching for him after that. After really the last two incredible seasons, he did great in 19, and obviously 20 was MVP caliber. He's a tough guy to say no to at this point. I mean, he's got a team
Yeah,
around him with the White Sox. They're showing up to hit, right? Like he's another
especially
guy.
this Jose Abreu's. I if I'm playing in an average league in an OPP league, I do like his 36.6 ADP. Like if I was in an average league, I'd grab him somewhere around there. I'm not sure I would in an OBP league just because of the options later on.
Yeah, you can probably get a little bit better in the OBP later, but boy, oh boy, like yeah, if you're he's like how many RBI? He had 27 RBIs last year. Oh no, not 27. I'm sorry, 60. I was looking at the wrong guy.
Yeah.
He had 60 RBIs in a 60
and 123 the year before, and the White Sox lineup just keeps getting better.
Exactly. I would agree with you. Normally, I'd be like, oh, I'm trying to wait for a deal on him. He might be the guy to get once Freddie Freeman's off the board and it gets a little bit further in that draft. You're not going to find anybody that can put up those RBIs like that. That's an incredible pace.
Yeah, it's consistency. The only year besides 2020 and since 2014 that he didn't have 100 RBIs or more was 2018. He had 100 RBIs or more in 5 of the last 6 seasons, discounting 2020.
In the game of baseball, who doesn't want consistency? Like that's too good, too consistent. I love it.
Right. And the next guy, this is a guy I was avoiding in all 2020 drafts. I did not like where he was going at all. And Pete Alonso, the guy who hit 50 plus home runs in 2019, and really the average dropped, but he had pretty much the same type of season. He was never going to hit for average. Like that's not his profile, but his home run pace was pretty close to 2019.
His home run pace was the same. Was fine. His K percentage, his walk percentage were both the same. Again, small sample size in 2020, but the percentage was the same. So maybe he got a little bit unlucky in 2020 in his limited at bats. It seemed like he was doing the same thing he did the year before, but his draft capital was quite high going into 2020.
Yeah, everyone was looking at 50 home runs, and I was looking at like Pete Alonso is one of those. I don't want to say one-dimensional because it's more than home runs. He especially in that improved Mets lineup. Of course, they got Lindor.
Oh yeah, that recent.
So he's gonna get the RBIs and stuff. He's kind of that. He's not gonna give you average. He's really not gonna. He might give you a little bit of OBP, like maybe average OBP, but I don't know. I do like him a bit better, obviously, with the Mets' new lineup. James McCann now, Francisco Lindor, so that lineup's improving. But I still think I won't be drafting Alonso this year.
I wasn't looking at him at all last year coming into the year because I figured the hype was too high, and I think that's still accurate. I'm not looking for him to be on my team. He's got to be somebody that falls, and I'm like, okay, that's just too good, and I don't think that'll happen. I don't think I'll be getting him. His hits, what he got almost it's a little bit more than half. I was gonna say Jose Abreu has 76 hits compared to Pete Alonso's 48, and I feel like that just kind of really shows you how that 2020 season went
right
in comparison for each other.
And looking at the season, I think Alonso's a bit closer to the 2020 season than 2019. I know it's a small sample size, but I think he's that 250, 40 home run guy. I don't think he's I don't think he's going to hit 260 or above.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't count on that. And I agree. I don't think we learned anything new with 2020 on Pete Alonso. I think he played exactly as we expected, and still a solid bat to have in your lineup. You're going to get your home runs. You're going to get some runs, and some RBIs. Hopefully, more RBIs with the team they're building there over in New York.
Yeah, and the guy right next to him now, Alonso's 53.8. Luke Voight, who was the 2020 home run leader, is at 80p 54. I'm still I don't know what to think of Voight.
I was actually encouraged with his little season here in 2020 because it was more of what he was doing in 2019, especially at the end of it. So I was actually encouraged, and I think that lineup that he's still going to be around with the Yankees is fantastic. So for right now, I'd be riding with him and I would be happy about it. He got plenty of his RBIs. He got plenty of runs. He's got people who are going to knock him in. He's not the fastest guy by any means, but the Yankees have 5 or 6 guys who are going to get a hit every time he's on base almost. I would go with Luke Voight. I think he's one of the guys who you can count on if he has a position going into this next year to get you some home runs and RBIs. I'm not really afraid of it. His strikeout percentage was the same as the year before. The same as the year before. He's consistent. Another 250 hitter, maybe 260. Maybe he's bouncing around a little bit. It's a little tough to say, but I like him.
I was surprised Now, I mean, it's Yankee Stadium, so it really doesn't matter. But because I saw Voight play with the Cardinals before he went to the Yankees, because I'm a Cardinals fan, and I always thought like he hit the ball hard, but he's actually pretty mediocre when it comes to exit velocity. But obviously, it's Yankee Stadium, so it's gonna fly out anyway. I think I would take Voight over Alonso. It's close. But I think Voight's gonna hit for a little bit better average, and I let Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium's going to help him a lot. I mean, his slugging percentage, when he hits the ball, he gets it into the gaps, I guess. I don't know. I don't understand it. And I guess maybe it's Yankee Stadium helping him with that. But his expected slugging is always top notch. But you're right about the hard hit. You're right about the exit velo. If it wasn't for Pete Alonso getting the help around the lineup, I would agree that Luke Voigt would be my pick over Pete Alonso. I'd wait a little bit longer, I guess he's going right after him. I would go for Luke Voigt, but with Pete Alonso the way he looks, I think it's kind of a wash. I think he can go either way.
Yeah, it's pretty close. And then after that, it's a guy who switched over from first base, Vlad Jr. going at 66.7. Would you classify 2020 as disappointing for him? I mean, obviously, where he was going in drafts is disappointing, but in terms of like his development, are you disappointed in what he did?
I don't know if disappointed is the right word. He's hitting the ball hard. He's striking out a little bit more than I would like. Actually, no, I take that back.
Yeah, he's got a pretty good strikeout rate. I think it's like 15.9% or something like that.
Yeah, actually it is. Yeah, so never mind. I am disappointed, but I don't know what I'm disappointed in. I guess the ball's not finding holes. He's not getting the ball elevated enough. I'm sure. I think that's one of the main things is he hits too many ground balls. But boy, when he hits it hard. Now he's a guy that I would wait for, though. I would not draft him at that position where he's going right now. I think that's too early. 66. I'm looking. I'm looking for
safer option, especially it's. I don't think I'd draft him there either. I mean, it really depends, and he might get third base eligibility sometime in the season. They're talking about moving him back to third because they don't have Travis Shaw anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want him there, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if 2021 was his big breakout season.
There's a lot of talk about him having this as his breakout season, but I mean that's if you want to take that risk. In my opinion, at that 66-ish area, I mean the next guy we have is much further down in my opinion, and then after that, it's kind of a drop off. So why reach for the last guy in a tier?
Right.
When if you don't get Vlad Jr. and you get somebody else who's a little bit further down the ways, who's after 100 or something like that, I feel like you're kind of you're going to be okay. So that's the tough part for me on Vlad. I want the hype. I want to see him do it. He hits the ball so hard, but his launch angle is terrible. Yeah, I'm looking that up now on Baseball Savant 2019. It was 6.7 and 4.6. Compared that to Luke Voigt and Pete Alonso, who are hitting it in the low teens, which is what you want to see. 15%, 16% launch angle. He's got to fix that.
Yeah,
5 and 6% is just tough.
It definitely is fixable. I mean, a guy we'll talk about later, Eric Hosmer, fixed that. He was a ground ball hitter for the longest time. I think there is a scenario where I would take Vlad Jr., but it would really depend on my roster construction. For my first few picks, I would really need some safe guys that I know are going to give me. I know exactly what they're going to give me, so then I can fucking take the risk on a guy like that.
Yeah, that's a situation where like maybe you haven't really taken very many pitchers and you're going for like the one starter thing, so you've been loading up on hitters and you can take that risk. But that's what I see it as. I do see it as a risk. He had 33 RBIs in that 20 game season or in the 2020 season. That's okay. It's it's not bad. So you could probably count on getting some of that and some runs, but I don't know.
Of course, the Blue Jays, they're rumored to be making moves, so the lineup might get a little bit better around him.
Yeah, maybe they're going to get Springer, and he'll have, maybe Vlad will hit before or after him. It makes me nervous. I'm not reaching. I think at 66, I'm going to wait. I'm going to let him go. If somebody else wants to get him that early. If I could get him closer to when Paul Goldschmidt we're gonna talk about him in a
Mhm.
minute. When he's drafted, if I can get him right before Goldie goes, that will feel good.
Now, here's a guy I was into coming into 2020. I was super into Matt Olsen. I was drafting him everywhere, and boy, was he a disappointment. 195 average.
It was a little tough to watch. He missed the ball a lot compared to the year before. Well,
Yeah,
up to the tune of 5% more. Hit the ball hard, hit it hard. Maybe face the same similar situation that Vladdy faced. He's hitting the ball right at people.
yeah. The home runs were there, and I mean, it's obviously small sample size. His BABIP was really low. I don't think he's gonna. He's never gonna hit for a high average, but he's not a 195 hitter. So
I mean, look at the rest of his stats though for that year. He had 14 home runs, 42 RBIs, and 28 runs. So I think he had more home runs than Freddie. He had, less RBIs, but 42 is a great for that season. That's right in the middle. So he's still getting you everything except average. If you get some average guys earlier on, you could eat Matt Olson's average and just profit off of the home runs and RBIs that you're going to get.
exactly, and he's one of the guys that does take his walk. So if you're an OBP league, that's even better.
Yeah, he's not afraid to take a walk, and that's exciting. Usually, it'll get you some better pitches, and I think he probably just had a little bit of bad luck this last year. I think that's all it was.
Yeah, the next guy is actually a guy I think is a really good value, and I'm not just saying that as a Cardinals fan, but Goldschmidt at 92.2 ADP. I mean, the power was down, but he had a good season.
He had a pretty good season. I'm more afraid of the team that's around him, honestly. Like I think he'll perform, maybe hopefully get some power back, but we're talking about these other teams that, Vladdy's kind of getting a team around him. Voight's got a team around him. Alonso might have a team around him. And you got Goldie. I don't think Goldie's got a team around him to really help him out. I'm afraid of the RBIs. I'm afraid of him getting even a lot of runs this
Right.
next year.
I mean, I can't argue with that. The St. Louis lineup is not that great, but I mean, you look back at his 2019, 34 home runs, 97 RBIs, and the Cardinals lineup wasn't that great back then.
It
And
wasn't as bad, but yeah.
no,
Yeah. It's still not great, but I mean, I agree. What's the solution there? We think just hopefully he sees the ball a little better and hits some more home runs.
yeah, I mean, he increased it. I mean, he had a 417 OBP, and he was leading the league in OBP for a while there. I mean, the power was down, but I just maybe that's easy to talk up to. 2020 was a weird season when he has a more normal routine. I mean, this is a guy that hit 30 plus home runs 3 years in a row: 2017, 2018, 2019.
Yeah, it is odd to see that he kind of tapered off right there. But I mean, he took more walks last year, so he wasn't reaching for pitches. His average was high. Yeah, I could expect a bounce back here. Especially at his value that's like the value that you're getting on him is insane. Almost at a pick 100, and you're gonna get Paul Goldschmidt. I think that's a good risk to take.
And the next guy, we start getting the ADP above 100 now. This Max Muncie, for some reason, and I can't explain it. I've never really liked Max Muncie. I don't think I've ever drafted him, but he's had two solid seasons. 2020 wasn't that great, but the 2 years before, 35 home runs in 2018, 2019. He'll take his walks. I can't nail down exactly why I don't like him.
He even has like a bit of clutch factor. I feel like a lot of the time when he comes up, you're kind of expecting something big to happen. So I like him in that aspect of things, but I don't think I've ever drafted him either. I think people usually reach for him. I think he's got too big of a name, even for like his draft pick of 100. But I mean, if you're gonna pass up Vladdy, I think Max Muncie's the guy that I would pass him up for. Do you know what I mean? I would
Yeah.
I would pass Vladdy and hope to get somebody like Muncie just because I feel like it's less risk. Does that like?
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know if
no,
that
this
makes
is
sense.
Muncie's definitely one of those guys. It's probably just he's the classic 250, 30 home run guy. Like you can probably
Right.
count on that.
Yeah, he hit 12 last year in that shortened season again, just behind Freddy Freeman, and if he got more hits, you'd make out like a bandit. But that's definitely not his profile. So yeah, I don't usually draft him either. He's not like an exciting guy. You're not looking for a high ceiling there. You're looking right there at that middle ground. 30 home runs, 250, and you're hoping he hits 250.
Then a guy that's kind of fallen. I don't remember exactly where he was last year, but he definitely was inside the top 100. Anthony Rizzo, who had I guess a disappointing year. The average was way down, but again, 2020.
They're saying, and I agree. This is not the first time, even I've heard about it or whatever, but them saying he had a down year. But again, he just had like a low batting average. The rest of his stats were kind of normal, especially for a Cubs team that was a little bit uninspiring, in my opinion. I think that was the only thing that dropped off. Really, was his.
Yeah, the walks and strikeouts were still relatively around the same mark.
Yeah, I think he just didn't hit the ball maybe as hard that year. And again, we could just chalk that up to 2020 being a weird year. Maybe he had a weird, he didn't get into it or something. I don't really know the mental state of players at that point. But consistently in the last many years, he's gotten 100 RBIs for 4 years in a row before 2019. 2019, he had 94. So, okay, he missed it by 6 RBIs. It's like nothing. So for this value, again, like if you're not getting one of those top guys, I'd be so happy with Anthony Rizzo, even though the Cubs are kind of.
I was about to say, yeah. The only thing I worry about is what if there's Chris Bryant talks, there's Wilson Contreras talks. How bad is that lineup going to be by start of the season? That's the only thing that worries me.
It could be pretty bad. I mean, they could be the same situation as Goldie, except you don't have that average to lean back on. So,
but you do have Wrigley Field.
True. So you're going to get the home runs, and Goldie kind of didn't hit the home runs, but he hit for average. So you just kind of got like a little bit of an opposite guy in the same exact player situation, team-wise. Very interesting.
Yeah. And the next guy, now this guy is the classic case of why putting a guy on your watch list is so important going into the season. So in 2019, I noticed that, Dominic Smith had a pretty good season in limited time. So I didn't draft him, but I put him on my watch list, and then I had him on every team in 2020, and he absolutely went off.
I made the mistake of not picking him up soon enough. I went to go grab him in my leagues, and he was gone that day that I looked. So I was kicking myself for the rest of the year. Every time I get an update about Dominic Smith doing something, I was upset. He had a fantastic 2020. I'm excited to see what he does in 2021. I hope they do the DH in the National League. Personally, I don't know about your feelings on that. We haven't really discussed that. But if they don't have that, where is he at? Is he going to play left field terribly?
Yeah, I hope we see the DH back. Yeah, that is a big question mark there. I think probably, especially if he still hits like that, they kind of have to stick him in left field. I don't know if I'm drafting him at 105. I believe in the bat. The lineup is great. Maybe I would. I don't know. And this is the first guy, at least for these league settings that we're looking at, this is the first guy that's eligible more than first base. He's also eligible in the outfield.
Yeah. I mean, I would take him at 105 personally. If he wasn't taken, I would go for him. He's got the RBIs. He's got the average. His walks could be a little bit better, but I think he's exciting. I'm just nervous about where he plays. I am nervous about the outfield maybe hurting him a bit, because I think he played a lot of first base, obviously. And I feel like first base isn't as demanding. So I'd be a little bit nervous of him getting a little bit more tired, if that makes sense. But I think he's exciting. I like him. I would take him at 105 in a heartbeat.
And the next guy is kind of a guy that was forgotten about for a long time, and then just had a resurgent 2020. He retooled his swing. He's not hitting as many ground balls. Eric Hosmer, it's a bit of a jump. We're about the 150 ADP now, and whatever he did, it seems to be working.
Yeah, that and see, this is a guy that I want nothing to do with. He did definitely change something in 2020, that brief little bit, and I hope for him that he keeps it up. I, on the other hand, don't believe in him. Sadly, I'm not a fan of him. So I will be steering clear. If I don't get Dominic Smith and my next option is Hosmer, I am waiting.
Yeah, I wouldn't probably go out of my way to get him, but I do. I mean, obviously, Padres lineup is pretty good, and
It's stacked. Yep.
he was only in 38 games last year because of stomach issues. He would have had a lot better stat line because he really only played just over half the season last year.
Yeah, and I'm not. And I mean, on top of that, we always want to take 2020 with a bit more of a grain of salt. I know we've been definitely talking those stats up a bit during this because it was quite exciting for first base. There's a lot of excitement in 2020. And I agree. He did do well in the limited time he had. It makes me nervous. I've never really been a fan of him. He definitely did well this last year. I really don't know what to say. He's a guy that I'm trying to avoid, but I might regret it, honestly.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going out of my way to get him. 150 ADP, I'm probably looking at a pitcher or something. But if he falls a bit, which a lot of people probably don't believe in Hosmer, I think in some drafts he'll fall past 150.
Yeah, that is usually the pitching area for sure. That's like when you're kind of getting your second and whatever starter. You're not your second. You're like third or fourth, and it just makes me nervous. He makes me nervous. Hosmer makes me nervous. I've never been too excited about him in the past. This last year made me a bit more excited, I guess. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, that's a good value, potentially a good value, depending on how your team is looking.
And here's another classic case of the guy that's going to hit about 250 and hit 30 home runs. Rhys Hoskins, who actually had a pretty good 2020. Like, I didn't realize, obviously a 245 batting average is nothing to write home about, but I didn't know he played that well. I mean, 887 OPS, 384 OBP. He had a pretty decent season.
Yeah, my problem was I drafted him a bunch in 2019, and I hated him because of what he did to me. So I avoided him last year. I'm not looking for him this year. He's kind of same boat as Hosmer, kind of done me bad. So
yeah,
I'm a little grumpy about it. But he hit his home runs. He got a couple RBIs. He had a good 2020. If he doesn't fall back into the stink that was 2019, I think he'll be good for some people.
Yeah, but I mean, even in 2019, he had 116 walks. I think this is really a case of your league settings. If this is OBP, Hoskins is pretty valuable. If it's average, he's not that, coveted.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, yeah, the OBP league at this point, especially that far back in the draft, you'll be pumped to have him there, getting you those stats up. You probably get some big swingers earlier on than in that case. But if you're in an average league, you might want to try to grab somebody sooner. But 250, 30 home runs you're hoping for, that's pretty much Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah. And the next guy, ADP 169, this is Josh Bell. Obviously, he's traded to the Washington Nationals now. Gets a little bit of a better park, but I have no idea what I think of him.
I mean, what was it? That year that he did really well, 2019, was it? I think it was just 1 month where he went off. I think it was like May or June, and he put up insane stats, and it really hyped him up. And I'm afraid that everything else we've seen since then is a bit more of what Josh Bell is.
Yeah. I don't think he's a 35 home run bat, and he gets a little bit. I mean, obviously, it's a plus. He's getting out of that Pirates lineup. He's going to the Nationals, but he's not really a guy I'm looking at drafting. I probably won't have him on any team.
No, honestly, my draft strategy, I think Dominic Smith is the last guy I would get, and then I would skip pretty much these last couple guys we've been talking about all the way down until somebody much further like Trey Mancini or Jared Walsh. Just honestly, these guys do not do excitement for me. They make me nervous.
Yeah. And the next guy, Miguel Sano, what a polarizing player.
Yes. Oh man, Sano. Dude can hit the ball hard. What are your thoughts on him? Do you like him?
I don't like people. I mean, 43.9% strikeout rate is atrocious. And now he was 100th percentile in exit velocity. So when he's hitting that ball, he's basically the best hitter at exit velocity. But I don't like him. I'm not gonna draft him because I could easily see him, batting below 200.
My thing is, like, what are you counting on when you get Sano? Like, are you counting on 20, 25 home runs? Because he only hit 30 once. So I'm not expecting 30. I'm expecting maybe 15 to 20. And that sounds bad, but he swings and misses a lot. It's kind of nuts. I can't imagine getting him unless he's like way late in the draft. It's gotta be down there a ways before I go for him.
At 187 ADP, that's way too high a price for me to.
Still too early, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. 2020, he's had 25 RBIs. He had 13 home runs. I mean, Freddie Freeman had 13 home runs and about 40 more RBIs or so. Like, it's tough to say, but I'm not excited. I would I'd wait for a deal on him, and I would need to already have in my opinion, I need to either already have a first baseman, or I'm waiting even later. I don't think there's any point in getting him if you can wait for some of these other guys.
Right. And then that's the last guy in the 100 to 199 range. Then we start getting past 200. And the first guy is Christian Walker, who to me is pretty boring. He's okay. He's not bad. He'll give you a bit of average. He'll probably hit 20-ish home runs, but like it's not like, oh man, I'm drafting Christian Walker.
Yeah. I'm still excited for his potential, but I think that's more because I don't think we've seen everything that he's got. But I mean, it's got to turn on now, right? 2021's got to be his year. If it's not his year, I think he's going to be sitting in this spot for the long haul. I think that it's do or die of whether this is really him or not. Is he a 250 hitter? Is he a 300 hitter? Is he going to hit enough home runs to be worth anything? This is the year that we're going to have to. This is his breakout year or his falter year.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, he's playing for Arizona, and that's a little rough. So I wish him good luck. Well, so what do you usually do on your draft strategy? Do you usually have a guy before you get past, get close to the 200s? Because in my opinion, if I'm not getting somebody in the top 100, I'm probably waiting until the 200s. I'm personally probably not grabbing anybody between 100 and 200. So I was just curious on what your thoughts were.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, past Goldie and Dominic Smith, if I don't get one of those guys, I'm probably waiting towards the end because there's a lot of guys that'll give you the power you need that won't necessarily give you the average, but there's so many options toward the back that you're like, well, he's not going to give me average, but he'll give me home runs. I'll get some RBIs. So it's not worth it for me to draft around the 150 ADP when right there I'm looking for my third and fourth starting pitcher because pitching's starting to dry up. So
yeah, I think that's exactly what I was thinking, and I was just curious if you were on that same boat. Kind of felt like we were, and that seems to be the truth. Why go for some of those guys when you can wait for somebody like Christian Walker who has the potential to do the same thing that Max Muncie could do? Honestly,
yeah.
Like that's just kind of some comparison to think about when you're drafting.
And a guy kind of hard to evaluate, Trey Mancini. Now, obviously, he beat cancer in 2020, didn't play. Yep. He was really good in 2019 for the Orioles.
Breakout year.
Yeah. I'm not sure I draft him in redraft. Like, I don't think I'd want him as my main first baseman just because he was off for an entire year. I kind of want to see what he does first.
Yeah. I think that even with his draft position being where it is, I think a lot of people are also going to wait. So I think you could actually get him at a little bit later too. But I see him being quite consistent. 24 home runs, so 24, 24, and then 35, and then his break. I do wonder how he's going to see the ball when he gets back. It's a valid concern.
And of course, you know, the
Tough.
Orioles lineup is improving a bit. You know, they got Ryan Mountcastle and all that, so he should have a little bit better returning to a little bit of a better lineup than he left. But I don't think I'm taking him.
Yeah, I like Trey Mancini. I had him in 2019, so that's where my little bias is coming up. I've been burned by other guys, and I have that problem where I get burned, and I'm like, ah. But I had Trey Mancini in 2019, so I'm up on him. He'd have to be my second. I would have to have already had
Right.
somebody in the first tier, and I'd be first or second tier, you know, that first top 100 or so, and then I would get Trey Mancini. I'd be pumped to have him.
And it definitely helped that he's outfield eligible. So you know, if you do draft him and you can stick him there.
I was about to say that I would be pumped to have him as an option to put out in the outfield. Was exactly what I was about to say. If he can come back and do what he did in 2019 and 18, I'd be excited. I'd still be happy with him. He even did great in 2017, actually. Like he's been a solid bat. So we'll just have to see how his recovery does, and if he can, you know, see the pitches well and progress and do well again. His strikeout rate is 20-ish%, a little over 20-ish% every time. His walk rate has gone a little bit higher, so I think he's seeing the ball better. We really will have to see how 2021 treats him. It's a weird spot that we're in, but I like him. I do like him.
Here's a guy that just kind of came out of nowhere in 2020, Jared Walsh, ADP 229.
Yeah, I'm an Angels fan. I loved what I saw. I did not expect it. I don't know where to draft him. I am unsure. What do you think?
You know, I didn't even know his name until 2020. I mean, when you look at the minor league stats, you know, the power is there. I mean, he had 36 home runs in 2019 in the minor leagues, and obviously that's in the power-friendly Pacific Coast League. But I don't know. I mean, I picked him up. I own him in a couple dynasties now because I picked him up as soon as he went off in 2020. I'm just not sure about redraft. He's kind of. He's tough to figure out.
I mean, I don't know what to say about him. I wasn't expecting him to come onto the scene and do so well. You know, going from AAA to the majors is a good step up. Like that is, there's a difference in pitching quite rapidly, but he showed he could hit it. The problem is we'll probably see some regression when pitchers start figuring him out a bit more. So that adjustment period. Yeah, that makes me nervous. But you know, AAA, he's hitting 290. He comes up in 2020 majors, he's hitting 290. Those seem like good signs.
Yep.
What else can you say about a guy you don't know much about?
Yeah. And then the next guy is something I don't really understand why he's going where he's going. Renato Nunez, going at ADP 230, doesn't even have a team. I mean, he had a solid 2020 season, but the Orioles obviously cut him, and I don't want to draft him.
I didn't understand why they cut him. I mean, is it to save money? I didn't really understand that because he had a good season. So
probably. I mean, they're going nowhere in 2021, and he was due a raise. So
yeah. So it's gonna be tough for him. I don't know about drafting him either. I liked him. I had him in 2019. I had him in 2018. I'm sad he doesn't have a team. I can't draft a guy if he doesn't have a team, though. So
yeah,
I'm one of those people where I've been,
especially because I mean, obviously Baltimore's such a hitter-friendly park. What if he goes to somewhere that's like pitcher-friendly? Because you know he's not going to hit for average. You need that power, so that just makes me nervous.
Yeah, he's going to strike out. He's going to swing for the fences. You definitely need a short porch. I don't know where he would even go. I haven't even thought about that. So, yep, guy that I'm avoiding. Nunez, as soon as he gets a team and I have a roster spot available, maybe I'll pick him up, but not somebody I'm looking at getting in the redraft.
Right. And then we got Carlos Santana, who's now obviously a Kansas City Royal. We're kind of a rough 2020, batted under 200, but the 47 walks to 43 strikeouts. So like the plate discipline, he's always had plate discipline his entire career. I mean, when you look back at the last 3 years, he had more walks than strikeouts in 2019, the same amount in 2019, and then more walks than strikeouts in 2020. I think he'll hit for a higher average. I don't know how much I like him in Kansas City. There are a couple guys like Whit Merrifield, Jorge Soler, so it's not like he's in a terrible lineup, but I
It's rough, isn't it?
yeah.
It's just not exciting. It's not
Mm,
exciting. I don't know. You're not waiting on him, right? Like you're not like, oh,
yeah.
I'm excited. I'm going to get Carlos Santana here soon. He's on the Royals. The Royals are going to get dominated by the White Sox, but hey, they'll face some Detroit pitching, which will hopefully be okay to hit against. But yeah, not exciting. I don't know. I don't unless you're in an OBP league. I don't know if you'll be trying to get him. I know I'm
No,
not.
yeah.
If you're in an OBP league, I mean, hey, he's a great late round pick. If you're looking for walks and need a guy to get you some walks, boom, that's a good late round pick. But other than that, I'm steering clear of Santana.
Yeah. And going after him about 10 picks later is his teammate Hunter Dozier, who's moving back to third base for the 2021 season, obviously because of the Santana signing. Again, this is a guy that probably not going to end up with. I mean, he had a pretty good 2019, but
Breakout year, yeah.
yeah.
Didn't really keep it going into 2020. It's tough to say. It's kind of understandable. He got a good amount of percentage on his walks. His strikeout rate stayed the same. I don't know what to expect. I think at this value, again, like we're getting towards the end of the draft. I think he's a fine pickup at the end of the draft, but he's a guy that, like I was talking about, like I might cut to pick up Nunez if Nunez finds a team.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like this is like my first guy where I'm like, oh, I got Hunter Dozier who could do first or third, and then Nunez signs somewhere, and it's a decent place. Like I'm dropping Hunter Dozier to then pick up Nunez.
Right. And I wouldn't be shocked if he had a okay season. I mean, this is a guy he's a former first round pick, but it's just it's not.
Hard hit percentage is low, exit velocity is low, everything is low. He takes his walks. We talked about that. That's great, but other than that, it's a little tough to get excited this coming season for him.
And then same division, but a guy that hasn't seen the majors yet, Andrew Vaughn.
That's an exciting name.
That is, and all signs point to him being up pretty early in 2021. The White Sox, they're not going to keep him down long. They're trying to compete. This is, he's obviously one of the top 10 prospects in baseball right now.
Classic 250 hitter, potentially more, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. And he's one of those high floor guys. Like I don't really see him busting in the major leagues. He might not become an all out star, but
yeah, I get a little bit nervous about like his power, but at the same time, he's coming up. He's gonna be in the White Sox lineup. If you could get a guy who's gonna have a chance to get as many RBIs and runs as him, with his 250 or higher average, what's your risk at this late in the draft?
right.
This is a guy you pick up in your final round or two, and you're just like, yep,
Yeah, and especially if you already have a solid first baseman that is going to give you stats, just pick him up for upside. If he breaks out, great.
Honestly, if I got like Freddy Freeman or Luke Voight or somebody like that up in the top guys in the first tier-ish area, first or second tier, I would probably reach a little bit. Well, so no, he's going at 260, right? 260-ish. Maybe not reach, but I would be excited to grab him. I already know I got my first baseman locked up I would sign him maybe a little earlier, maybe around that 260, maybe even like 250, right? Like, why not if you already have a solid spot? I think that's a smart move for him.
And a guy that kind of broke out in 2020, Heimer Candelario. Did you believe his breakout?
No, not at the time of it happening. I'm excited and nervous to see what he does this coming year, but no, I didn't believe it when I was seeing it. I was like, okay, so he's got lucky. But he was playing against, I would say, a little bit of the weaker teams, within his division. I think that was the weakest, wasn't it?
I mean, yeah, because
Central.
he was in the AL Central. He was playing NL Central teams. There's
Yeah.
not a lot there. I probably won't draft him. I mean, this is a guy. He's been up and down in the majors since 2016. He's not a 297 hitter. I don't think
No.
he suddenly found his stroke.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking right there. I was like, he hit like 200 most of the time, 220, and then all of a sudden he's almost hitting 300. Exciting, I guess, for him. But yeah, I mean, that's a guy that you're watching. Maybe you put him on your watch list.
Yeah.
And
especially even in that, Detroit Park's not exactly the most hitter-friendly park, especially center field.
yeah, he had such great numbers in 2020, and I don't think we have the data there to explain it. So I'm not excited by it because I don't believe in it.
The next guy I am pretty excited for, though, and that's Rowdy Teles.
I'm not very familiar with Rowdy. I didn't pay attention to him much in 2020. So, do tell.
Yeah, so I mean, this is he showed some pretty good improvements. Now, obviously, it's 2020, but if you look at his baseball savant page, I mean, besides sprint speed and walks, it's red. He has the power. He's not going to hit for a huge average, but this is a guy like this is my last stop at first base. Like if I need one more guy, this is the guy I'm taking. He went from a 28.4% strikeout rate in 2019 to only 15.7% last year. And again, 2020 small sample size, but you like to see that improvement.
That's an amazing improvement. I don't think anybody else comes close to touching that kind of improvement. You're right. The exit velocity, the hard hit rate, it looks like he is a slugger. And he's in that Jays lineup. They're looking to win. Like, what if they go get again? I mean, this would be that lineup is fantastic. So Rowdy Teles, that's a guy who I'm going to be looking at this next year. Pair him up with somebody early. That does look pretty good. He hit 8 home runs in his 113 at bats. That's pretty solid for that year.
Yeah, he's probably one of my even overall, not just talking about first base. He's probably one of my favorite sleeper past 200 picks in the draft.
He looks like a great sleeper. That hard hit rate that's exciting. Like is that like Max Muncie level? Like that is like he's hitting that ball hard.
And this is a guy that he's going to continue to grow. He's 25. He's basically starting into the what's considered the prime of a player's career.
He's starting in his prime, and he's surrounded by a bunch of prime players. I think you're right. Rowdy Teles is a very good late round pick, little sleeper. I'm going to try to get him in some of my leagues. You've already convinced me, and it's only been 30 seconds. I'm all in.
And a guy that made his debut in 2020 that's going directly after Teles is Bobby Dalbec, who had a good season. I didn't expect him to hit 260 because he didn't profile as an average guy, and obviously this is 23 games. He's not a 260 hitter. He's a power hitter that's going to hit 220 in my opinion.
I was excited. I was actually surprised that they brought him up. But I think he's an exciting player around a team, that now has Alex Verdugo and is getting some of their stars back as well over there in Boston. We got Chris Sale coming back, who's going to be a leader in the dugout. Obviously, you got Xander Bogaerts. I think this could be a good team this next year. And Dalbec is ready to make his impact on the team, and I think he's got a prime time to do that. 8 home runs in his 80 at bats. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
solid. That's pretty solid.
It just makes me nervous because pitchers are going to start adjusting to him. And again, we keep saying 2020 small sample size, 42% strikeout rate, even with his success last year.
Yeah, he's a free swinger apparently, but he also had a 10% walk rate. So 10% is pretty good. I mean, that's not atrocious. You'd like to see it higher, but you'd like to see it higher with a 42% K rate. But is he going to stick at 42% K rate? I don't.
No,
I think he'll
he'll
do better. He'll be doing all right.
And that then we start getting to 300. I wrote down a couple notable guys. Jesus Aguilar, not the most exciting name in the world, but he had a good 2020. He's one of those, especially if you're in a deeper league. He's gonna start in Miami, so he'll get maybe 20-ish home runs, bat 250-ish.
Yeah, with Don Mattingly managing that team, I don't know if we're going to see what we saw last year with the. Obviously, he did great managing the team last year, but I'm not sure that he'll be able to get that out of his team again coming into this next year. So I would expect less. I would shy away from Jesus. We saw him do great that 1 year in Milwaukee and then fall off. I'm kind of expecting a bit of a fall off, but another guy you put on your watch list. Let's see if he's hitting the ball well.
And then a guy who had an absolutely terrific 2020. Brandon Belt. And, Brandon Belt, it's always the running joke as this is finally the year he's going to hit 20 home runs because he still never eclipsed that mark since 2011. I think the most he's hit is 18. But
so close.
I don't think he suddenly found his home run string at age 32 in a shortened season. So I mean, obviously it's past 300. You're not spending much if you want to gamble on that, but I'm not counting on a repeat of 2020.
No, I mean he plays at San Francisco. It's just a little tough for him to hit, balls out consistently out there. So yeah, I mean, if somebody gets injured, maybe you pick them up. But yeah, well, what else are you going to look for right there? It's kind of it is what it is.
And then Nate Lowe. I always want to say Lau when I see that, but it's Lowe.
It's Brandon Lyle, right?
Yeah. So he got traded to Texas, which is a great move for him. He'll get way more playing time over there because, I mean, there's nobody blocking him in Texas.
That's the best thing about him going to Texas is he gets to play.
Yeah. Interesting guy. I don't know if I'm gonna draft him. I definitely would put him on you leave the draft, you put him on a watch list kind of thing. But
he could get hot. I would definitely he'd be the guy that I pick up if you see he's facing a young righty who might not be too great. You know what I mean? Like I'd be matchup oriented on him, and that's a little difficult. Also, their new stadium, we're not sure if it's a home run stadium yet. It seems like it's not based off of 2020, but small sample size. I don't think the ball is going to fly out the way that it did at their old stadium, at the old Rangers stadium. So I'm a little nervous on Nate Lowe. I'm a little nervous on him. I don't know what I would do. I don't think I would be too excited on him.
And the next guy I have, this is kind of for deeper leagues if you have a deep bench. Michael Brasso, I think is how you pronounce his last name.
Yeah.
But I like if you have a deep bench and you can just plug him in when he's playing against lefties, he'll probably give you some pretty good stats.
Yeah, same thing with Nate Lowe. I consider them basically the same guy except lefty versus righty. One guy's on the left side of the plate and he hits righties well. The other guy's on the right side and he hits lefties well. So really good platoon options there.
And then the final guy I had, I wrote down, Moran obviously had a hot start to 2020, kind of cooled off. I just kind of want to mention him because obviously Josh Bell is not in Pittsburgh anymore. Not a guy I really want, but maybe a guy you pick up for a week or two when he has that hot streak.
Yeah, exactly. You pay attention to him. Oh, he's hit really well these last 2 games. All right, I'll pick him up. and ride it until he goes 0 for 4, and then that's when it's time to cash in and drop him.
Yeah.
Ride him for that little stretch, and then thank him for a service. I think that's exactly what Colin Moran is. He's going to get more playing time, so maybe his stretches will go a little longer. But yeah, not something to be too crazy excited about.
Yeah, so as we start to wrap up here, we'll start. What are your top 3 targets and who are your top 3 avoidance going into 2021?
Yeah, I think that's a fun question for first base because you can really spread it out. So I mean, top targets, pretty much everybody in tier 1 is kind of a top target, right? Like Freddie Freeman, Jose, Pete Alonso. But top target, Freddie Freeman. If I can get Freddie Freeman around that turn, I am pumped. I would actually be ecstatic to get the 11th or 12th pick in a draft, because I know who I'm getting. I'm most likely getting Freddie Freeman. After Freddie Freeman, my next number 2 pick for a guy we both like and we're talking about, Dominic Smith. I think he's going to do great things this year if he gets the playing time. I'm hoping the DH stays so that he could either play first or DH. I don't want to see him in left field and potentially either get hurt or just get tired in general. But if you look at Dominic Smith's stats, he had 10 home runs and 42 RBIs. Freddie Freeman, who's the number 1 first baseman, had 13 home runs and 53 RBIs. That is not a big difference, and yet that is almost 100. Well, maybe not 100, but 80 to 90 guys away, and you're getting a very similar guy. Now, we all know how good Freddie is. I'm not saying Dominic Smith is Freddie, but he's a Freddie light, and I would be pumped to get Dominic Smith. So he's my number 2 guy. And my number 3 guy is Jared Walsh. I'm kind of, the two guys or 3 guys that I would target. Those are the 3 that I am looking for in the respective spots that they go. I'm excited to see what Jared Walsh can do. I hope that the other teams don't beat him up this year. I hope they haven't figured him out yet. But if they haven't, I think he'll have a lot of success. What are you? I would say you want to go over your top 3.
So I'm gonna go a little bit of a different direction. If I have a turn pick, Freeman will be my target too. But I'm just going to assume here that I have an early pick, and Freeman is already gone. Like by the time it comes back to me. So if Freeman was gone, probably my first target is Goldschmidt at 92. Either him or Dominic Smith. They're going about 10 picks apart. Those are probably my 1 and 2 targets right there: Goldschmidt or Dominic Smith. And then after that, kind of blends together.
Yeah, you get that 253, 30 home run guy, right?
Yeah, maybe depending on the draft, I might just wait for Rowdy Teles. Maybe grab one of the more boring guys towards the middle of the or early 200s, and then Rowdy Teles would probably be like my 3rd.
I like that. On your way to waiting for Rowdy, if you chose to go that route, you could really get a lot of other guys, for other positions and starters, and you could really make a solid lineup built around Rowdy. And I think that could be a good route. That's a good like sleeper route there. I like that.
So who are the top 3 guys you don't think you'll have on any teams this year?
Top 3 guys, and I'm going to be avoiding Vlad Jr. Sadly, I think we haven't seen it yet, and I don't want to be the guy holding him when it doesn't happen again for a 3rd straight year or 2nd straight year, however many years he's been here now. But he's been just slightly disappointing each time, and I think for where he's going in the draft, I'm avoiding him. I'm not going to grab him. I'm going to let him go. So he's my number 1 guy that I would be avoiding. Number 2, Rhys Hoskins. I picked him up in 2019. He burned me. I am done with Rhys for now. If I'm going to try to pick up Rhys, I might as well wait for somebody else a little bit further along the way, like Trey Mancini, Jared Walsh, somebody else afterwards. So I am definitely avoiding him. And my final guy is Josh Bell. Josh Bell, I don't believe in him, sadly. He had, like I said, that one great month back in 2019 where he was on fire, and the rest of the time is probably what he really is. and that's just not good enough for me to draft him around there. I'd rather wait. I'd rather do your idea. And if I'm going to wait, if my option is picking up Josh Bell or Rhys Hoskins, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for
Right.
Rowdy. I'm waiting for somebody else.
Yeah, so the first guy for me is Max Muncie, and it's not all just about Max Muncie. It's just because he's kind of sandwiched between Paul Goldschmidt and Dominic Smith. So if I'm taking a first baseman around there, it's going to be one of those two instead of Muncie. So Muncie's the first guy. The second guy, I agree with you on Josh Bell. I'm not going to have him on any team. I'm just going to stay away from that. And then Miguel Sano, like I'm just people have been waiting forever on him, and I'm not willing to take a guy that's probably gonna maybe hit below 200.
Yeah, it's tough to count on a guy to suddenly stop missing bats, or not missing bats, stop missing balls. um, the opposite, yeah. So, I don't know how you fix that 40% strikeout rate. Like that's tough. Yeah, I agree with you there. I would avoid him as well.
Yeah, so that's pretty much first base. A lot of depth, not a lot, very middle heavy, very interesting position, and I think I'll probably have a pretty good mixture in all my leagues of different guys. I would probably won't have like the same guy everywhere.
Yeah, I like you said, it really depends on the draft position with this one because I feel like if you have the chance to get Freddy on the turn, I feel like you got to do it. But after that, it really is a toss up. It really is a toss up. It's a lot of middle ground there and a lot of good names to really make something happen. I think it's an exciting position this year, and it's gonna be a fun one to watch, like it was last year. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see who comes out on top this next year.
Absolutely. So that's gonna wrap it up here. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, always you can hit me up at Fantasy81 on Twitter, or you can comment below. If you're listening on YouTube, you can comment below. If you're listening on Spotify, you can hit me up on Twitter. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. It's always fun to talk baseball. And yeah, definitely comment. Let us know what you guys think. If you guys, prefer somebody that we didn't, maybe talk up enough or something like that. Give us some reasons why. Let us know why you like who you like.
Absolutely. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next podcast.